This podcast is brought to you by Pragmatic Solutions, the leading iGaming PAM platform with a modular approach, including many benefits like a fast, secure, and scalable API-based platform, integrated with all major third-party products and services. Make sure you head over to Pragmatic Solutions and join our smart thinking.
And hello everyone, good to have you guys here in the audience with us today. This is a very special podcast actually, because myself and Maarja, we've been acquainted here since a couple of years back actually, and the theme of today's discussion is leadership through challenging times. And that's a little bit of a prelude here, as an introduction. I would say that for me, Maarja is one of the most inspiring persons that we have in the iGaming industry. Maarja started 10 years ago as a customer support agent at Yolo. And in these 10 years, she has climbed the ranks and is now the CEO of one of the biggest online gambling companies in the world, in Yolo, and one of the most respected ones. Yolo is also, if I'm not mistaken, Maarja, voted the third best place to work, as well, something like that, in Estonia. With Bolt being ranked number one or something like that. It's a pretty good kind of competition you have there.
Yes, we've certainly received a couple of good nominations and recognitions over the years, and we are certainly a part of kind of the startup community.
Yeah, absolutely. But not everything is sunshine and roses, of course, to kind of go through the ranks. And obviously Yolo has a reputation of always been doing great things, but I know that it's been a lot of challenging environment to get there as well. But without me introducing you too much, I wanted to start by just asking Maarja, kind of your own origin story and how you managed to get from a customer support agent to the role you have today and the challenges that you faced along the way.
Thank you, Pierre. First of all, I'm actually really excited to be back on the stage again. It's almost like this is our second podcast that we're doing, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing where the conversation goes.
Yeah, me too.
But to get back to the story, then actually, when I started in the industry, this was 2010, so already 2000, it's now 14 years almost. And as a college graduate of just a 20-year-old girl, I certainly knew very little of the industry in general, very little of what the entertainment or the technology part or the opportunities are going to be. And what I will say is that actually back in 2010, I would say that the industry itself was completely different from where we are today as well. In essence, I've gone through the rise and fall of professional poker, all of the affiliate networks, the rakeback, and whatever else you name it. Yeah. But even in terms of the regulations landscape or the payment opportunities, the blockchain and crypto, I think everyone was talking about big data and AI, but compared to where we are today, it was certainly 180 degrees behind. Yeah. It's interesting how the world ends up going in cycles. So when I started in 2010, obviously this was at the back of the global financial crisis that had just started picking up again. And the learning points that all of the businesses had to take from there. And I guess it was... you could say that only the strong ones survive, can't you?
Yeah. And how did you, so you've had this journey now, like I said, starting as a customer support agent to getting yourself to the CEO position. Was that always your aspiration to make this kind of journey, or how did you kind of go from step to step? Was it always a step process?
No, not at all.
No?
I think the key part to this was that I always, I've had this inner drive, knowing that I can't stand still. I want constant movement, I want constant progress. And when I was exposed to the gaming industry, it almost like this became a part of my DNA.
Yes.
And like the startup vibe, I joined a team of 6, so everyone got the chance to be themselves and actually like experience firsthand everything that there was to offer. And that certainly like shaped my experiences going forward. I've never believed in leadership by titles that much, if I'm honest. I think from the times when we were a team of 6 or a team of 50 or even a team of 100, then actually like everyone had to. There was no hiding. Everyone had to take responsibility. Everyone had to lead by example. And when we first established Yolo Group, as it's known now, in 2013, the key there was that we actually we stayed true to the mentality that had gotten us that far.
Yeah. But do you think as the company grow larger, does it become more difficult to retain that feeling? Because when you're a small company, it's like, you know, you all work together, everyone is pulling their weight, you know, you have to do what you have to do. But when the company gets bigger, does that put more pressure as well to be more driven by processes rather than kind of do what needs to get done? Do you feel that as well now that you are approaching, you know, almost 1,000 employees and so on?
I took my first like C-suite role in 2015, so I became officially like the CFO.
Yeah.
And it even felt like it felt very like strange, almost like I couldn't own up to this title. And I think at that time we were a team of around maybe 50 people, and you were still expected to like step into this leadership role within like still a fairly small team. Now, fast forward a couple of years to now last year, it's almost like I woke up one morning and I was like, oh my God, it's not the same business anymore. It's not this team of 50 people. It's 1,000 individuals. And in essence, you all need to be on the same path.
Yeah, yeah. And what do you attribute the fact that you are now voted the 3rd best place to work, for example, in Estonia? Where does that success come from? Is that this? I know that you have the open door policy, for example, and the company is very open to learn from each other. But like, is there anything particular that you attribute that success to?
So today we have fairly autonomous verticals within Yolo Group. We obviously have the B2C business complemented by the business-to-business offering, as well as the Bombay experience, the yacht and everything. And I think the key there, although we are a company of 1,000 members, we still very much refer back to this like the startup mentality, that you actually still need to first of all own up to the responsibility. You need to make sure that you're not carried away with this like big entitlement or big bubble. Like in essence, like in big corporations, I feel that sometimes it's so easy to hide away or point fingers, whilst this is something that we really can't afford. Yeah. And we've been running these verticals pretty much as separate startups with a very strong management team in each, but allowing us to make sure that we still bring together Yolo Group's vision into one based on these values that we actually had in 2010 as well.
Yeah, fair enough. And I guess it doesn't hurt either that you have a YOLO super yacht as well for the place to enjoy as well.
No, not at all.
That bumps you up a little bit on the scale too. Bolt doesn't have that's for sure. So in 2022, last year, it was a very challenging year for a lot of organizations, and particularly YOLO. You have interest in Ukraine, of course. Obviously, Estonia, where your company is based, was very heavily affected by the war in Ukraine in terms of inflation and so on and so forth. a lot of challenging macroeconomics in general, the industry uncertainty. Can you talk about the challenges that you faced in 2022 and how that kind of changed yourself as a leader, perhaps, but also your organization?
I think actually like the circumstances combined from all of the recent years kind of like culminated in 2022. It was like us coming out at the back of all of the COVID pandemic, a changed world between working from home and from office, the war, as you mentioned, the macroeconomic status, the crypto crash and banking challenges and whatever else. Plus, if you then combine it together with like talent crisis, how do you keep everyone motivated? At the back of Yolo actually expanding very, very rapidly, not just in terms of headcount, but also in terms of volumes and amount of projects. It's very hard to keep it all together.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like in Yolo Group, you have in the portfolio, there's like 100 companies almost doing a lot of different things, and it must be difficult, especially when in this like kind of rocky climate, to keep it all together. I mean, and as a leader as well, keeping the teams together and keeping kind of company together. Did it change the company? Did it change how you approach the vision of Yolo in any way this time?
I think this is actually the beauty of it. I think as a leader, you actually need to learn something new every day. And when you're faced with that many challenges all at once, it kind of forces you to actually look at it from another angle. And this is where the opportunities arise. Very much so.
Yeah, interesting. And you know, I'm also curious, Maarja, you're something that struck me the first time I came to the Yolo headquarters in Tallinn, except for it being like, I know that you were part of designing those offices as well, and they are like incredible. If anyone ever gets the chance to go over there to see the Yolo headquarters, it's like a piece of art, this building, right? But you know, what struck me as well is the fact that you have, it's very cliche to say, I think that, like, but it's almost like a bit of a family feeling within the offices as well. The employees are very proud to show the guests around and what everyone does and so on. But I wanted to ask you, like, what would you say that your kind of like leadership principles are? Do you have any? I know that you're a bit principle driven. Is there anything? Are there any principles that you carry with you in your day-to-day work that you always try to enforce and think about?
Absolutely. I think it's so important to like, first of all, obviously stay yourself, but at the same time, you almost like you need to challenge and question yourself like every single day. You need to ask like all of the difficult questions, like, am I doing the right thing? Am I still on the right path? And you could, in essence, you could call it even like an imposter syndrome, that you're always like questioning yourself.
Yeah.
But I think it's actually unhealthy paranoia that
I think that's a great way of saying it.
Going.
Yeah, we spoke about this in another episode of the podcast, but imposter syndrome is really interesting because when you kind of listen online to self-help gurus and so on and so forth, they talk a lot about how do you beat imposter syndrome? How do you like switch off that voice that is telling you, you know, that is like doubting yourself and so on. But personally, I have a different view of imposter syndrome, that is something positive. That imposter syndrome, it keeps you on edge, like, and it keeps you at the forefront. Like when you question yourself, you also become better through that. And imposter syndrome is almost like a source for learning and a source for staying on top and a source for improving yourself and so on.
I agree.
Yeah, what do you make of imposter syndrome in general?
I absolutely agree. I think like once you think that you've made it, like once you think that like I've got it all and I'm the smartest person in the room, then actually this means that you're not progressing, you're actually like taking steps back. Competition is always fierce, and I think it's so important that as a leader, you actually surround yourself with people that are much smarter than you are. And I think it's also so important that you don't lose the humility. So like asking for help and still having like these inspiring figures around you, your mentors and your like support network, because otherwise it can become lonely.
Did you feel this when you kind of rose through the company, that you had the people in the organizations that were helping you as well to make that journey? You mentioned it's maybe not a journey that you did on your own. You needed people who were there for you as well to get to the point where
100%. It's like it's certainly like building up a group that big. Like this is not down to one or two individuals. Every single team member has to contribute. Like otherwise, why are they there in the first place? Right?
Yeah. But it's interesting as well. I mean, I remember when I moved to Malta 12 years ago, I worked for Betsson Group as a poker VIP manager. And the C-suites, part of them were not based in Malta, they were based in Sweden at that time. And so we were like somewhat disconnected with the C-suite in the company back in those days at least. And it was almost like a feeling like these people, like the people in the C-suite, they are something special that I am not. And because I am not raised as a CEO in those environments, and they are kind of like up here and I'm down there. And it's something interesting that I notice now when I'm building my company here with iGaming X is that like as the CEO, you feel like you're so willing to help those who have that ambitious kind of journey ahead of them as well. And my girlfriend, she asked me the other day, you know, she's in the beginning of her journey in Presenter Group, one of the operators here. And she asked as well, you know, she wants to learn, you know, she wants to like understand more how the company works. And so I told her, you know, speak to the CEO and ask if he's willing to kind of mentor you or to let you be the CEO trainee or something like this, because I'm sure he will love doing that, because there's so few people who dare to do that.
I agree. And like in a way, I would say also that the world has changed. I think this like approach of silos doesn't work anymore. I think the new generation is certainly looking for something more meaningful. And I think for the leaders of all of these different organizations and businesses, you now actually do need to step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. This is funny. The origin story of Steve Jobs. When he was younger, he lived in Silicon Valley, you know, and he was in his kind of late teens or mid-late teens, and he took up the phone book at that time, and it was like the founder of HP was listed in the phone book. So he gave him a call, and he said, you know, I'm looking for spare parts to my HP computer. Do you have any spare parts? He was the founder of HP. And the CEO founder, he thought it was so funny that this kind of teenager calling him directly, asking for these spare parts. So he said, you know what, I'll give you something better. I'll give you a job at HP. And then you can learn from there. You can get the spare parts. You know, so Steve Jobs, he talks a lot. He used to talk a lot about like so many careers or so many like great paths are made by just picking up the phone or actually daring to ask that question to the person who is in charge, kind of thing. And I also feel that now as a CEO, like I said, that I think we are always open for those younger professionals who aspire to get to that level. But it actually doesn't happen often enough, I think. People they still feel a bit scared of kind of opening that door. I don't know if you feel that too sometimes.
I do, but I think this means that more often than not, you are the one who needs to take the first step.
Yeah.
For example, you mentioned remote offices, and although our headquarters is based in Tallinn, we actually have multiple offices around the world, in Malta, in other parts of Estonia, but also in Latam. We have a big office, plus obviously we used to have offices in Ukraine, we still do. So there's, you need to make sure that you are seen and connected to all of these, all of the teams.
Yeah, and I mean, that must be a challenge for you, considering that you have that many different offices. Again, like growing the company at some point, it's kind of becomes a bit more impersonal, perhaps. Do you try to kind of mitigate that somehow?
I guess the best mitigation of this is to have have team leads in place who actually live and breathe the same values. So again, I come back to the importance of the DNA and the principles that at least Yolo Group was built up upon. Not a day goes by that we can really forget about those.
Yeah, true. So, Maarja, how do you personally deal with the pressure and stress that comes with not only being the CEO of a large company, but also the added major pressure of going through a difficult period like 2022? I mean, carrying the weight of a company of nearly 1,000 employees, and you were responsible to some extent for these people's livelihood. This is a huge responsibility and pressure and stress that comes with that. Does that affect you in any way, as a person? And how do you deal with that stress and pressure?
Of course it impacts me.
Yeah.
I guess what I will say is that I don't think that there ever will be a day where I'll feel that, okay, I've got this. It's almost like every morning when you wake up, you really have to be aware of the responsibility, and you need to make sure that there is good balance, in essence. I think there's just so much that still can be learned, and I feel that you'll never be complete.
No, for sure. Do you ever have off days?
I do, and actually this has become a very important part of my routine as well, that I still take occasional holidays. Yeah. I make sure that...
I follow you on Instagram, Maarja. I can see those holidays are very well planned out.
But that actually can only happen when I have a strong team in place. So without my management teams, this would never be possible.
Yeah.
And this way I can come back and I can provide more value as well. I think as a CEO, there's a big danger that you'll almost get stuck in this day-to-day hamster wheel.
Yeah.
And you need to come off this. You actually occasionally you need to look at the bigger picture from a completely different perspective, to be able to take the business forward, because otherwise it's you almost get too objective, and it's easy to kind of forget that the main point is still to increase the value of the business, right?
Yeah. It's a very good point. You can get very stuck in the day-to-day, and because as a CEO, your job is to take quick decisions all the time. You take 100 very, very important or very quick decisions every day, and sometimes, as you point out, you can kind of miss the forest for the trees. So you just take these quick decisions day by day by day. That is sometimes difficult to kind of zoom out and look at the company and the strategy of the business, and are we actually doing the right thing? And COVID was a very interesting kind of period in our life for that perspective, because for many people, including us as a business, we were forced to take a step back during that time and really scrutinize the business and ask ourselves, are we doing the right thing? And in our case, it ended up from us going this direction to completely changing to a different direction. And it just kind of highlights the importance of sometimes being able to just step away from this kind of day-to-day and really look and scrutinize the kind of the bigger picture and so on. It can be quite difficult to get into this deeper way of thinking, or a deeper focus in order to understand are we doing the right thing, and then actually changing the direction.
But then actually when you look at the situation retrospectively, you understand that this actually happened for a reason, and the outcome was for the better, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and we always joke that 1 month every 2 years, you should just shut off internet for all employees, and then let the employees have a month and give them a task to come up with the biggest idea you can think of for the company. If you were the CEO and if you were in charge, what's your one big idea to change direction of the company? And then let them come back, a month later, and you kind of talk about these ideas together. I think, it's a cheek in tongue, but it's not a very bad idea. There are big companies that have actually implemented something similar they get kind of forced leave. They're not allowed to answer email and come back then with this like kind of big idea, because those are the, you know, it's enough with like one idea to transform a company to something much greater than it is today, perhaps. Would you consider that, to give all the employees a month of forced every second year?
Well, maybe in some sort of like a slightly different format, but I think you are absolutely right in saying that like almost like innovation requires space.
Yeah.
People are very they're very prone to switch back to their old habits and be a part of the processes that they think are right.
Yeah.
But then if you put it to the perspective of how fast the world is changing, how fast our industries are changing, then perhaps the things we used to do 5 years ago or even a year ago, they actually might not be appropriate anymore.
Yeah.
But you need to actually allow the space to make sure that people can think, not just do.
Yeah, exactly. I think like AI is a good example of this, where like if we would take just a couple of weeks or just shut off and just think about how the current like AI revolution could change our own businesses and how it will change the world, we would quickly be able to recognize some ideas that we can build towards to change our businesses. But this is a good example of like most businesses, they see ChatGPT, they see GPT and the advancement in AI, but then they get stuck in the to-do, and they don't have that time to kind of zoom back then and look at the big picture. Do you find time sometimes to take that step back and think more strategically of the company? Like, do you have any tips for how to do that?
I've literally learned to do it. It didn't like this isn't something that comes naturally, especially when you're so used to the like fast-paced environment and kind of like keeping yourself like constantly busy up until one point when you really need to ask yourself like, am I doing the right things? And once you realize that, then it becomes a lot more natural to take a step back frequently.
Yeah, interesting. So starting to kind of wrap things up a little bit today, Maarja, what advice do you have to young leaders who perhaps aspire to become the CEO one day? Like, say that in your customer support team today in Yolo, those who look at your journey and they get inspired by that, what advice would you have to them to make if they consider to do the same journey as you?
Well, first of all, work hard. Don't lose sight of your ambition and your real goals in life, but also make sure that you're always surrounded by people who inspire you, people who give you energy, people who you can actually learn from. And I think before you know you're further forward than you ever would have imagined, don't forget to celebrate either.
Have fun, basically, yes. Final question for you today, Maarja. Where do you see Yolo in 3 years' time? You know, Yolo is such a dynamic company. You do 100 things at once. I can imagine in the offices when Tim walks through the door and he has another idea, you know. But where do you see the company in 3 years' time from now?
So we certainly want to leverage the technology and something that currently very much is lacking, not just in our industry, but globally, it is the payment options and the rails onto it. So that's certainly going to be something that we're looking to further on introduce to the ecosystem. However, that said, in order for us to achieve it, I would say that the most important thing we have to do is not forget what made us the success we are today. We have to remind ourselves constantly of this mentality of a team of 6, the startup vibe, making each other accountable, doing what we enjoy, and most importantly, keeping the customer at the center of this universe that we're creating.
Fun, fast, and fair. Thank you so much, Maarja. It's been an absolute pleasure today. And guys, please give Maarja a round of applause here. She's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you. Amazing, Maarja. Thank you. That was great.